Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul. I'm actually going to finally be filming a book haul back to back with this book unhaul, so check up in the cards to see that video as well. So today I'm going to be showing you the books that I'm probably going to be getting rid of. This book unhaul is actually going to be a little bit different from the other ones I've done in the past, which will be linked up in the cards, because this one is a little bit more questionable. So typically when I'm considering getting rid of books, I will gradually take books off my shelves, add them to some sort of unhaul pile, and I kind of consider that unhaul pile probation. So like if I miss having them on my shelves or I decide that I want to add them back to my shelves, I will. But these are actually books that I just took off my shelves a couple weeks ago. I recently reorganized my bookshelves, and in doing that I kind of went through my books and took several of them off. So these books haven't been sitting around for a long time and having me think about whether or not I want to get rid of them. These are just books that as of right now I don't think that I'm going to get to, and I decided to go ahead and take them off my shelves. There are some duplicate copies that I have that I will definitely be getting rid of, and then there are some books where I'm really certain about it, but these are pretty up in the air, although I really don't expect to put them back on my shelves. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I am unhauling. I'm gonna go ahead and start out the list with the duplicate copies, the first of which is Scott Pilgrim Volume 1 by Brian Lee O'Malley. So I got this used copy pretty cheap at a used bookstore like a year or two ago, but when I actually started reading the series, I realized that my local public library had like one volume of it, and the cheapest way to buy them all was going to be to buy the box set. So I went ahead and got the box set, and now I have this extra copy of Scott Pilgrim. Next up is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. I got this one a little over a year ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, and this one is a great copy. I love floppy paperbacks, but the other two books in the series that I have are shorter than this one, and it just didn't match. And I found a really inexpensive copy at a used bookstore that did match my current editions, so I went ahead and got that one, and I'm going to be getting rid of this one. Next up is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. As you may be able to see kind of down here, I have City of Ashes and City of Bones still in paperback versions, and I found a hardcover version of City of Glass that was in really good condition, so I decided to go ahead and get rid of this one and replace it with a hardcover, and I'm hoping to do the same thing with City of Bones and City of Ashes. So we're now moving on from the duplicate copies into the only series on this list, and that is the Pathfinder trilogy by Orson Scott Card. This one's pretty simple. I got this trilogy because Reagan from Peruse Project really loved it and recommended it a lot, but I kind of realized after I got it that I wasn't really interested in reading it. Like, the premise sounded kind of interesting, but I never had any sort of motivation to pick it up, even though I've had this series for quite a while. And I just kind of realized that I didn't want to read it. So it seemed kind of pointless to leave it on my shelves when I knew that I really didn't want to read it, so I'm getting rid of it. Next up is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. In theory, this seems like it would be a book that I would really want to read. It's a dystopian story, and it follows several different characters, which are things that I really love. But it's also one of those books where when I see it on my shelves, I'm never inclined to pick it up. It's never something that I've seriously considered reading. It's just kind of sitting there, and I, for some reason, never have had any interest to actually pick it up. This is one that I would consider keeping because it has gotten a lot of praise from reviewers that I really trust, but as of right now, I'm taking it off my shelves and getting rid of it. Next up is Lock-In by John Scalzi. This one is kind of similar to Station 11 in the fact that it sounds like something that I would like, but every time I see it on my shelves, I have zero interest in picking it up to read it. I've never looked at it and seriously considered picking it up to read it. It's just kind of one of those books that is taking up space on my shelf, and maybe in the future I will want to read it, but over the past year and a half that I've had this book, I have literally never wanted to pick it up. I'm realizing as I'm going through that a large chunk of these books are books that I bought on Book Outlet, which is a big reason why I typically don't buy things on Book Outlet anymore, or I try not to unless I see something I really want. Because when I buy books on Book Outlet, I tend to just spend very little money on them and then never actually read them. They tend to be those type of books where, in theory, they sound like something that I'd really like, but then they sit on my shelves for years because I actually don't want to pick them up for some reason. So yeah, a lot of the books on this list, in fact, Pathfinder series, Lock-In, and Station 11 I all got on Book Outlet, and I'm about to show you some more Book Outlet purchases. Next up is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. This is one that Kat from Katie-tastic absolutely loves, and so when I found it on Book Outlet for pretty inexpensive, I got it. And then I realized that I didn't really have much interest in reading it because I have had this on my shelves, I want to say for almost 3 years, and I, like with the last few, I've never actually considered picking this book up. And I feel like with some of the other ones, like, they're things that I really, in theory, should really want to read, but for some reason I don't, whereas this one is kind of outside of my wheelhouse. Paranormal isn't necessarily something that I gravitate toward, so I don't know. I just haven't ever had much interest in reading this. Next up is the book on this list that in theory I should probably want to read the most, but once again it's one that I've just let sit forever, and that is Trial by Fire by Josephine Angelini. Once again, this is another Book Outlet purchase that at first I was really interested in. It deals with alternate worlds, and that sounded really cool, but I once again have just never actually considered picking it up. Also, I haven't read either of these books, but reading the premise that sounds like the exact same premise as Magonia by Maria Devanahelli. I don't know if there was some copying going on there or who published first, but like both of them deal with a girl who has a ton of allergies in our world and then is like really powerful in some other world. Like, has anyone noticed that before? I don't know, maybe the books are completely different because like I said, I haven't read either of them, but the premises sound almost identical. Next up is The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove. This is another one that was really recommended by Reagan from Peruse Project, and it does sound really interesting. Basically, in this world, like, the different sections of the world are in different, like, time periods, and it's like the map makers like are super important because they make sure everyone knows how the world works. That's a really rough estimate of what this is about, but that's what I remember about the premise. This is probably the one that most intrigues me on this list, and the one that I've been most inclined to pick up over the past few years, but I just haven't for some reason. Like, I've looked at it and I've been like, oh, maybe I'll read that, but I've never like actually considered reading it, like with all the other books on this list. So for now, this is going in the get rid of pile, but I might add this back to my shelves. I'm not 100% sure. Next up is More Than This by Patrick Ness. I honestly think that I probably just don't click with Patrick Ness as an author because he gets so much praise with his Chaos Walking trilogy and with More Than This, and I've only read the first book of the Chaos Walking trilogy, but I thought it was alright, and then I got like 50 pages into this and then I set it down, and then I got like 30 pages into it and I set it down, and then I got 50 pages again, set it down. So I clearly just don't want to read this book. For some reason it's not clicking with me, and I just didn't want to continue reading it every time I picked it up. So I'm getting rid of it. I'm pretty certain about this one because I have actually tried to read this one and have just not been impressed. I guess not impressed isn't the right way to say it. I just wasn't really interested by anything that was going on in this book, and it never really hooked me. So I'm getting rid of this. I'm pretty certain about this because I've tried to pick it up multiple times and it's never clicked. And finally, in this unhaul, the last book is one that I have actually read, and that is The Iron Trial by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black. I read The Iron Trial in the Booktubeathon last year, and I liked it, but I've since decided that I'm probably not going to continue the series. I did give it 8 out of 10 on my initial read, but I've since dropped it down to a 3 out of 5 rating on Goodreads, and overall I liked the book, but I didn't like it enough to compel me to continue the series. The concept was really cool, but I just didn't click with everything as much as I wanted to. Maybe that's because I was reading the book so fast because it was the Booktubeathon, but either way, I didn't connect with the series in the way that I hoped I would, and I've decided not to continue it, and so I'm not going to keep this book on my shelves. So that is it for this book unhaul. Like I said, this video is being filmed back to back with a book haul, so that will either be up in the cards when this is posted, or it will be posted in a few days, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that I have recently started a new series on my channel that is called YA Bandwagoning, where essentially I'm going to be reading the popular particular YA series or the first books in those series that I've really been neglecting on my shelves. So the introduction video will be up in the cards, and if this is posted after the first video in that series is posted, that will also be linked up in the cards. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!